Okay, so welcome to the Event Adjudicator webinar in just about still March 2026. Time flies by, doesn't it? We've got a few topics that we're going to cover off tonight. Some various different themes. Some are system related, some to do with various bits of work that are going on at the moment, and some around some of the challenges that we're facing with some of the wider rules outside of those that we govern. And there will be an opportunity for question and answer at the end. If you can stay muted until you're going to ask a question, we can just make sure that there's no background noise coming in until that stage. So that'd be brilliant. So we'll move on to our first slide. And we don't like to do death by PowerPoint on these, so there's not too many slides, which is always good. But we thought it might be useful, and we did this with the race directors. We had a race directors one on Monday night, where we went through some of the headlines around events and participation that we've seen over the last 12 months. So to give you an idea, we license around 3,000 events across the country, from the London Marathon down to the local club runs, which you guys help us with in terms of attendance and getting out there all around the place and making sure that that happens. What that translates into is there were 1.41 million runners that took part in those licensed events in 2025. So we've expressed that as a calendar year, because that's how people tend to think of road racing, multi-terrain racing from January to December. And you can see on the stats there, 69% of those runners were not affiliated. We know that brings challenges as well because they're less aware of the rules perhaps than club runners. And looking at the male-female split, 56.5% of the 1.4 million were male, 43.5%. Obviously, the balance were female. If we split the affiliation into genders, you can see the figure there. So 68% of male runners were not affiliated. 70.5% of the female runners were not affiliated. So that would fit with the profiling that we have across our affiliated clubs across the country who do amazing work, that we have a slightly higher number of males that are in our running clubs and athletics clubs across the country. So we'd expect to see a slightly higher number of affiliated runners from the male audience that we see in the sport. And of course, we do have Run Together. That's not included within the affiliation because Run Together groups are not, the runners themselves are not affiliated, although the groups are within the England Athletics family. So the figures that we've expressed there are not reflective of entries from Run Together groups, of which there's about 2,000 or so groups across the country. We are looking at our data and our metrics and measuring to see if we can report on that figure, because I think that's a really useful tool moving forward in terms of how we look at the profile of events across the country. To give you an idea as well, because I know this varies across distances, we've broken out a couple of the distances that we regularly see, 10K and a half marathon. Obviously, the two most popular distances that we see across licensed events across the country. And we've broken down what the average price points are. We just thought that might be interesting for you guys to see. And we know that obviously the major city events tend to be more expensive because they've got a lot more infrastructure, a lot more upfront costs that they have to cover. Regional club-led races, less infrastructure, don't have the same price points. So the major city events for half marathon usually costing between 45 and 75 pounds. And the regional or club-led races in the half marathon, somewhere between 25 and 40 we're seeing. We do know obviously there's geographic distances, so the south of England tends to be a bit more expensive than say the far east of the country or the far north of the country. So we know that there are, but this is taking an average across all of the data that we see And this is based on all the licensed event data that we collect and aggregated together. 10K, there's kind of three areas that we break it into for 10K. So you've got your major city and landmark events, have massive numbers of road closures, of course, as do the half marathons in the same area. But 10Ks can be as much as 45 to £50 in the major cities. So if you see like Great Birmingham run 10K and that kind of profile of event tend to be up at that kind of level. The regional and standard road races that we would term as mid-size, anything from 22 to £35. And then the local and community races, which are about 63% of the licensed events that we approve every year, somewhere between 15 and 25. Probably if you're, in Lincolnshire, they're probably more towards the £15 mark. If you're close to London, probably 25. As we say, those regional differences. So we thought, for context of how the events are looking over the whole of the country, that's quite useful to understand. We're all aware of the rule book, and obviously the most significant change that we've had with rules for some time come in from the 1st of April 2026. So really only a couple of weeks away now. Um, so you'll be aware that the age groups are moving from odd to even. From a road racing point of view, it has limited immediate effect to things in terms of the operation of road races, because road races tend to operate based on the age of the participant on the day of the event. They might be sitting in an odd age category at the moment, and then they become part of an even age category. But whether or not they're qualified or allowed to run in that race is based on the age on the day. So what we've done here is we've taken a chart which is available on the EA website, and we will share the link in the notes that go out after the event when we email out copies of the recordings, where you can find this in the age group sections on the EA website. We've shared this with race directors as well. So you can see there are the different disciplines there, but we're focusing on that red section tonight, which is the maximum distances that you can run in any of the terrains. So principally, that's unchanged, because it's still, if you're an 11-year-old, you can still do 5K. If you're a 15-year-old, you can still do 10K. Still have to be 17 to be able to do a half marathon. Still have to be 18 to do a full marathon. And obviously beyond that, it's whatever distance you want to do. But what you'll see here is that some of that intermediary distance, although not necessarily changed, has probably not been as clearly communicated as this previously. So you can see a 15-year-old can actually do 12K. Although most commonly we see 10Ks, that does mean if somebody's got a slightly long 10K and they know that it's a long 10K, that 15-year-old can still do it because there's that extra 2K. You'll see the same at 17, that 25K with a half marathon actually only being 21K. So it gives a bit of scope there, and we thought it was important that we communicated that much more clearly to race directors. And you can see right at the bottom of the grid there, 10-year-olds is 3K. So that's one to bear in mind, because of course they can do park run with an adult, which is approx 5K sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. But of course they can't run that distance with us at a licensed event. And you can see the recommended distances that we put in there, but obviously that's not a rule as such, it's just guidance for people. So hopefully that's useful. We'll share that, as I say, the link to that. There's lots of information on the EA website about age groups. If you happen to be adjudicating at a road relay over the next coming period of time, it's worth you just going into that section and just making yourself familiar with those even age groups and what it means. And if you need any help, obviously contact us, and we'll be more than happy to assist with any questions you might have on that. Just moving across slightly now, this is going on to the RunEvent system. So probably worth mentioning to you that we have got a whole load of updates that will be going on to the system during the course of the year. But what we wanted to do here was highlight one of the areas that we know that some people have found a little bit more difficult than others. And so making it easy for you to find it. So the screenshot you can see at the moment is based on from a desktop computer. So you'll see it laid out in this way. And this is where you've gone into your profile, you've gone to admin, you've clicked on events, and you've found the event that you've just adjudicated, and you've pressed that name of that event. So you've gone logged in, gone to admin, gone to events, clicked the name of the event you've just attended, and you'll be presented with this screen. And you can see on the left-hand side of this particular screenshot is the 3 red dots, which relate to the race director's responsibilities, where they fill in those 3 forms: the race director forms, the declaration of numbers, and the results upload. Obviously, you don't need to worry about them, but they're quite handy to highlight because the one that's immediately below that, event adjudicator forms, is the one that you click to fill in your forms. That will bring up a new box. You press add new, you fill in your form, you press save. So we thought it was worth just showing you that just to make it clear. If you happen to be doing it on a tablet or a mobile phone, it changes the view slightly. So the menu that we saw on the left with event info, and we saw the race director forms, the medical, declaration of numbers, sorry, the results upload, that in the left-hand screenshot we've got there with event info and Smugglers 10K written on it, you can see there's nothing to the left of it. But above it, you'll see event info with a little grey triangle next to it. By clicking that grey triangle next to event info, you'll see the screen that's now appeared on the right of this slide. And you'll see again, race director forms, declaration of numbers, results upload with the big red dots next to them, and then your forms are directly underneath that. Once you click on it, it works in exactly the same way. But we know some people have been like, oh, I'm not sure where the forms are. We've had a number of queries. So hopefully that helps you to understand where they are.
Following you.
Okay. So one of the updates that you'll see in the next couple of weeks is what we're calling prompts, tooltips, and reminders. So what this does is it brings up, as you're using the system, a series of pop-ups and coloured bands and tips that appear on your screen in the way that's shown on this screenshot that we've included on this slide. So as you log in, different tips will appear to help you navigate the system. So when you first log in and you're looking to find your event, there'll be a tip to help you. And like we were talking about there, where are the forms? You can see once this tooltip goes live in the next couple of weeks, that you have your highlight there, you find it. So all you need to do then is click on it. And there'll be lots of other tips. Some of them are, say, they're coloured bands across the top of the page. Some of them are pop-ups like this. And the way that this new kind of help system works is that it knows what you're doing at any given time. So it knows what to put up. So if you've already completed your forms, that pop-up in this instance wouldn't be there because you've already done it. And it learns with you. So it understands that you don't want the same bit of information all of the time. And it, depending on what activity you're doing, it will pop up and give you the tip there. And of course, we're always available on support to help you as well. But we think this will be a really good step forward. There's a whole series of them for race directors as well. So those of you who perhaps are race directors and didn't make the call on Monday, there are a whole load of race director tips that will come up as well. Okay, so we're going to move on a bit from system. So there's a few points that we wanted to cover here. And the first one is to remind you about the measurement certificate renewals, those of you who may have missed this. So from the 1st of February, so just over a month ago, we removed the need for race directors to visit the measurer's website and to renew their certificate to have the current race date on it. As long as the measurement was made within the last 10 years, and that's the important bit, when the measurement was actually made, not when the first race was, but when it was actually measured. It's valid for 10 years from that date. So chances are they'll only get to use it 9 times because the measurement date will be a month, 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is before. What we're not doing is issuing a whole load of new certificates. So you will come across races that have a race date from this year, last year, year before, potentially, and will do ongoing for a period of time. So what you'll be looking at in those certificates that have already been produced is the date of the measurement and making sure that that date was within the last 10 years. Races that have new courses measured will be issued by the Association of UK Course Measurers a new style of certificate. The new style of certificate looks very different to the old one, so you'll instantly look at it and think, oh, this looks different. Has the England Athletics logo on and the RunEvents logo on there as well, and that has an expiry date on it. But we didn't see that there was any point in giving the course measurers a whole load of work to do to reissue all of the old certificates. So you'll be faced with one of those two things. The course measurers now have a brand new website as well. They've put that live, huge step forward from before. So it's massive step forward. I think everyone would agree the old site had seen better days. So we're delighted to see their new website, and we are doing some work with them to continue that process and to look at training, recruitment of measurers, because we know that there's an acute issue with that in a lot of areas across the country. What we are also doing, and some of you might have spotted Paul Wood, who is one of the measurers and is Southeast Regional Chair for RunEvents as well, has popped in the chat there, and we're just about to remind you as well that it's recommended that obviously the race director has a copy of the course measurement report with them on the day so that they can make sure that they have set the course out correctly. It's not mandatory, but it is recommended. And during the license process, they do tell us that they've got access to that report as well. So we've kind of double-ended it. You'll report it in the same way. Was the measured course run? Yes. Have you checked that with the race director? Yes. So your bit, but all you're doing is looking, obviously, that the date of the measurement was in the last 10 years. Next point we wanted to make was around checking medical standards and sharing medical data. And we know that this has been a source of concern for a number of people, both race directors and adjudicators. And the licensing group that we have across the country, and Roland and Paul are both on the call. I'm not sure, I can't see all of the faces on here, but some of the other regional representatives will be as well, are making sure that obviously proper medical cover is provided for each of the events, and making sure that it's not just Fred, who's got a first aid certificate from the club, or from somewhere, and that the proper cover is in place. So they're doing that. Obviously, as part of that, you report back to us and say uh, that the right medical cover was there, and there's a space there for you to comment on that medical cover. Obviously, if you see that it was just Dave with a first aid kit and there didn't appear to be proper medical cover, we want to know about that because that's not what they will have told us on their application. But you'll be used to that anyway. Um, but we know one of the areas of concern is around sharing that medical data, so that the medical companies can provide the best possible care at an event. So there's a couple of different ways that this can be done, and we did have a question from a couple of adjudicators recently on this. It can be provided to the medical company via some kind of app or electronic searchable database that they can access on the day. That's not a problem if that's what they decide is the best. It can be provided in a paper format that's given as a printout on the day to the medical provider and then taken back from them. That's really important, taken back from them at the end of the event. Um, Whichever of those formats the medical company and the race director find works best for them is the right thing to do. Because everyone has different IT capabilities. Some organizers have access to clever systems, others don't. So we don't mandate what is the right or wrong way to do that, but obviously making sure the data is kept secure is really important. The other thing the race directors will be doing, and we know we've got the question on the license standards and on your adjudicator form saying, was the medical info shared? That's obviously happening on the day. But what we've asked is that race directors share in advance the medical conditions that might be faced. Um, that doesn't mean that we're expecting them to send a list of everybody's names and personal information. Um, but if, for example, there's 50 people that are diabetic, or there's an abnormally large number of people who've got asthma, it would be useful for the medical provider to know that the situation at that particular event on that particular day is abnormal. They can bring extra insulin, they can bring extra medical supplies to deal with whatever the condition is. Or maybe there's something that's a rare condition that is perfectly fine for someone to take part, but there's a certain bit of equipment or medication that might be needed if something was to go wrong. So they can do that without giving personal information away. Some of you will be aware as well, we're currently undergoing a medical review. So many of you will have seen on the resources section on RunEvents our medical guidance, our medical matrix that says the number of people at an event based on the distance, and therefore what recommended, and it's always recommended rather than anything else, cover, because every event is slightly different. That's quite a few years old now, and we are currently reviewing that. We've got a mixture of race directors, licensing people, NHS professionals, doctors, clinicians, health and safety, and insurance people on the call. So it's quite a cross section of people so that we make sure that we cover all bases. Because, okay, I might know about licensing, I might know about race directing. Am I a clinical expert? No. That's why we have people on the call that cover each of those areas. So one of the bits that we've had feedback from race directors and indeed some of you is quite complicated at the moment to follow all of the information. There's a lot of sections to it. There's a lot of rows and columns in the matrices. So we're looking at how we can simplify that, make sure it's still fit for purpose. But it also doesn't really currently reflect where we're at with the sport now There's a lot more multi-terrain events. There's a lot more multi-lap courses. So we're looking very much when we write this new guidance about the environment that a race finds itself in. And to kind of illustrate that for you, we're looking at um, if you've got a half marathon that is 2 laps of a 10K, that's probably different cover potentially, depending on how many people there are, to a single lap half marathon because an ambulance, medical provider, medical person has got a big loop to cover. Whereas if it's 2 laps of a 10K or indeed 4 and a bit laps of a 5K, the distance to travel to treat a person is much smaller. Equally, if you've got a multi-terrain event and you're going up over some tracks, through some gates, across some grass, perhaps into the woods, and that's a 10K, that's going to be different to a 10K on the road that you can just drive an ambulance around. With the multi-terrain environment, you might need to consider gates, access points. You might need to allow time for a vehicle to drive a few miles round to an access point. Might need to be a key for a gate. So we're trying to involve all of those situations. That the reality of the sport today is we face all of those things. And coming up with a sensible solution. And we will have some case studies within it that explain, a bit like I have there, explain how that might work in different environments as well to try and bring it to life for people. Off the back of that and happening at the same time, some of you may be aware of the event healthcare standard that is currently being reviewed. And I know there are some medical companies contacting race directors with a little bit of scaremongering at the moment that it is definitely going to change and it's definitely going to be this. It's not been decided yet, but that's companies for you. This was born out of the Manchester Arena inquiry, same one Martin's Law came out of, and we'll touch on that in a moment. This was volume 2 of the report, and it was recommended from that the Department of Health and Social Care should establish a standard level of healthcare service required at all events, largely based around CQC. The reality is at the moment, there are not enough CQC providers in the whole country to cover all of the running events, let alone football, hockey, tennis, and everything else that is also covered in the event healthcare standard. So I was in Westminster a couple of weeks ago talking to politicians, health and sport, culture, media and sport select committee members about how this might work, whether there'll be exemptions, that kind of thing. We also know that CQC providers, because of the amount of paperwork, administration and everything else that they have to do, they're often a lot more expensive than a medical company that is not CQC registered. We fully accept that CQC is a great way of quality controlling private medical companies and, in fact, the NHS, of course. But is that right for all events? Is the local event with 200 or 300 people that's straightforward? Do we need CQC medical people for it? That's kind of the topic that's up for discussion. Does it kick in at a certain point? Of course, London Marathon should have CQC registered providers, and they will have, and they do have. But we obviously deal with all sizes of events. How would it affect parkrun? Who knows? We're not going down that road, but is that an event? Would they need CQC medical? Technically, on what's printed at the moment, you'd have to, but the reality is that's not going to happen. But obviously, all of these things are being fed into it, and we're fighting the corner for the sport and all of the events, whether they're club organised or whether they're the larger events or anything in between. So that's all going on at the moment. The other thing to make you aware of that obviously was connected with the Manchester Arena inquiry is Martin's Law. Has got a fancy new name. that came into being in April last year as a piece of legislation. Um, what we want to make clear to everyone, and again, we did this with the race directors, is that there's 2 years from the passing of the law for the contents of the law to be implemented. So we've got until April 2027 to implement that. Um, Unfortunately, when the law was passed, there wasn't guidance, notes, and shall we say, thought put into how what they'd written was going to be translated on the ground at many of the events across the country, not just in our sport, but in other areas as well. So we have a member of our team who is on the Home Office working group, um, talking with other sports and that Home Office working group about what does Martin's Law mean in reality to a 10K with 600 people, to a 10K with 2,000 people. What does it mean for the London Marathon? So all all that's being discussed. Are there going to be exemptions? That's what we don't know yet. So that process is ongoing. Um, the important thing is we're around the table with the people that are able to work with us, to listen to us, and ultimately we'll make the decision on what is and is not going to happen. And we will be issuing guidance um, and details to all of the race directors and all of you as adjudicators across the country, so that we know we've got all the information and we know what steps we need to take. Hopefully that will be soon, but obviously we don't know exactly when. We don't want to be in a situation that it gets too close to April 2027, because if there are events that need to make changes, which is quite possible, they need time to be able to do that. So we're working as hard as we can to try and get that information as quickly as we can. But I'm sure you realise, political circles don't always move super quickly. These type of things take time, and we can't change where we are now, but we're trying to just move that forward. So hopefully that makes sense there. Um, on a different note, we've still got quite a few people when they're receiving event adjudicator requests that are not responding within the 14 days. And so therefore we're getting lots of auto rejections from the system, because if you don't answer on the system within 14 days, it rejects it, and therefore the race director is going to choose someone else. If you should receive an email that tells you that a request has been sent to you. I know I get them. Um, and we will, if you're not getting them, let us know. But if we can ask that, you log in to the system, have a look. When you log in, go to admin, go to adjudicator requests, see if you've got any in there that you might have missed an email for, and try and do that on a regular basis. You can still press reject if you can't make it. That's not a problem. But what we don't want is a whole series of rejections just because people haven't seen them. Just makes the whole process harder for them and ultimately everyone. We've got a question that's just come in. Colin's just asked what Martin's Law is. Okay, so Martin's Law is to do with anti-terror and security measures that the event might be required to put in place. So obviously the terror attack at Manchester Arena with the bombings, there are a series of recommendations from that about how the event could be made more secure from a terrorism and threat point of view. So Martin's Law deals with measures that events need in place to protect the people attending those events from that type of threat. Okay, so that's a lot from me. I apologize that there's a lot there. we have got the opportunity now to open up. There may be questions about some of the stuff that I've covered as I've gone through there. I realise I went through it quite quickly, so happy to go back on any of the points. Or you might have questions that we've not covered and you just want to know the answer to. This is your space now to ask whatever questions it is that you want to know, whether it's about expenses, standards, procedures, whatever you want. So I can see Roland laughing there. Remember, I can see your camera, Roland. So we'll open up to questions. Richard Wybrow.
Hi, hi Barry. Just it was more of a suggestion, really, and it kind of came out with this meeting invitation. Would it
Yes.
be possible when we get the email to say thank you for agreeing to adjudicate at this event to get a diary appointment added to that email?
Oh, so like a calendar invite, you mean?
Yeah,
That's a good idea. Sounds sensible. I'm sure the system people will tell me it's not as simple as that, but
yeah,
we'll certainly make a note of it and put it on the request. We'll come back to you and let you know if that's doable.
yes.
Brilliant. Thank you. Eamon, you're next up, Eamon Dorling.
Thank you very much. Um, when we adjudicate an event and we think, I wonder whether all the medical data has gone to the first aid people, what's a good way, what sort of evidence should we be looking for? Because I think sometimes I say, yes, we've done that, and we really don't know whether they have.
Oh, because you're just asking them a question and they're just saying yes.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I guess just I'm thinking off the top of my head here, what would be a good way? Perhaps just say to them, well, if I was asking you about running 695 that's in the race now, would you be able to tell me what it is and see if they can actually look it up?
So go to the medical
Medical
people.
provider, yeah, and just ask the medical provider. I mean, they've no reason to lie, have they? So I'm sure if you speak to most medical providers, they'll be upfront with you.
Thank you, Barry.
Lovely. I know Melanie, I know Ben's going to drop you an email about claiming expenses. There is a form that you fill in that comes back to us for that expense claim. Ben will drop you an email to point out where that is on the system for you and just give you a bit of a guide through the process there. Hopefully it gets paid fairly quickly. But with expenses, please don't, and this is a message for everyone, don't stock them up for 6 months. Completely ruin our budgeting process if you do that. So if you can do that, even if it's sort of every couple of months is ideal. There is I can't remember the exact time that we say that is a cut off for it. So try and do it regularly, even if it's just for small amounts. Robert McCardle.
Yeah, just a quick one. I brought up the last one. In the course review, you've got a drop-down box to say is the course run on open roads or closed roads. The majority of races would probably be running both. They'd close off completely start finish, but either have partial closures or one-way closures. And some courses are not in roads at all. Like, for example, a promenade or a park.
Yes.
Would Angus said last time, would they be able to just change that drop-down box, add another couple of options?
Yes.
So you
We
can
did
get,
cover this last time, didn't we? And we obviously
yeah.
haven't sorted it, so apologies for that.
And the other thing is on the form, there's boxes at the bottom of the pages for you to put a comment in. At the moment, if I don't put a comment, I just put a full stop in because I can't go past it. Is that the correct way to handle it?
Well, hopefully you'll put more than a full stop, but I mean, I guess if you've got nothing at all to say about it, yes, we'd encourage you, even if it's just like if everything was good, just to put all good, rather than just a dot, because that just leaves us thinking, well, was there nothing to say? I'm not trying to add to your work, Robert, but
I was
the
thinking
reason
that
we added it on each section was because sometimes on the old system we'd go through and we'd get yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and you get to the end, and then it would just say nothing really, and you're like, and when we're relicensing it, we're like, we've got no sense of what the event is like at all if we don't know it personally.
I've got free type boxes at the front and I've got two at the end that ask you what you discussed with them, what
Yeah,
improvements. It's covered elsewhere.
yeah.
Sometimes I'm actually thinking this, somebody's got to read this at the end.
Well, yeah,
This
that's
is the
true
end.
as well.
Somebody's got to read a lot of these. I'm only doing one at a time. They're getting
Yeah,
bookends with them.
yeah. As long as we've got enough to understand what the race is about, that's the key thing, really.
Hmm. Yeah, that's fun.
Lovely. We've got a question come in on the chat there, all regarding wearing race number on shorts. Lots of runners wearing water bottle waistcoats.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. As in hydration packs, I think Gary means there. Um, so yeah, obviously the rule is that the number should be worn on your front rather than on your shorts. We do know, obviously, particularly now we've got a lot of ultra distance events taking place. We've got events over multi-terrains where they might have to put a waterproof coat on and then take it off again. That there are times when shorts might be the better option, but we should be encouraging wherever possible them to wear it on their front so it's nice and clear. Uh, Hopefully that's helped, Gary. Piers Punton, you're next.
Hi, Barry. One of the things I think that we're not getting as adjudicators is feedback on our reports.
Okay.
So I adjudicated a race that was significantly lacking, a major race that was significantly lacking in marshals. And as I understand it, that race is still significantly lacking marshals. I don't want
Okay.
to name the race, but is there a opportunity for the race adjudicators report to basically say, we need to talk about this?
Yes.
Because I'm feeling that the report's going to a black hole,
Okay. Yeah.
and I have no idea whether they get put in the bin or whether they get scrutinized for 15 hours and every dot and every T is looked at, or
Yeah.
somewhere in between. Now, I appreciate that the vast majorities of races we do are extremely well run.
Yes. Yeah.
And are sorry, not professionally, but are done to a high standard with the runners, with the runner at the center. But some of them
Yes.
are very much money-making ventures,
Yeah.
and are extremely poor in terms of their should we say expenditure of money. So I cut to the chase. Is there any way of getting some sort of we need to talk button?
Yeah. I mean, that's what the flag is for. So if you raise a flag against
I've
the
I've raised a flag and I heard absolutely nothing back.
okay, when a flag is raised, and this is something we probably need to do better, when a flag is raised, that triggers an email that goes to the regional chairs across the country in the 9 regions, and also gets flagged to myself and Ben. So from that flag, we will then talk to the race organizer, whoever that might be, whether they're a multi-million pound company or whether it's a local club that are just doing it as a community thing. And we will look at obviously what you've said, and hopefully from the comments, it's straightforward to understand what you've said, and address that issue with the race organizer. We will seek assurances from that race organizer. So if it was, for example, a lack of marshals, we would seek assurances that they've put steps in place to deal with the lack of marshals and what they're going to do. And obviously, we're then expecting them to have done what they've said. And then in this case, you might go to the race again. And we wouldn't expect the race organizer to repeat the same problem. But obviously, if they did, we'd want to know about it, and we'd be able to look back historically and see, even though you said you fixed it, you didn't. What we're probably not doing well is coming back to you as individuals to communicate that we are doing something about it. Because we might look at your comment and we're like, we can see exactly what the problem is. You've raised a flag. We'll talk to the race organizer, deal with the problem. And basically, at the moment, you're left not knowing that we're doing that. So we need to make sure, and we can make sure this does happen, that we come back to you and say, we note your comment. We've taken these steps to remedy it. This is what the race organizer has said to us. That, provided that's not a confidential thing, of course, but hopefully it shouldn't be. And we could then take the opportunity to say, is there anything else we need to know about this that might not have been included on the report? So we can certainly deal with that. We don't spend 15 hours reading them, though, Piers, as you probably realise. If we did, we might need a few more staff around the place. But yeah, we'll undertake to do that. You have our promise on that. Right. Just deal with one of the chat questions before we come to someone with a hand. If someone's wearing headphones despite the briefing, is the event covered by the event insurance? Yes, that's Mel Gould who asked that. The event is, because as long as the race director has done everything that is reasonable to enforce the rules, and in the case of wearing the headphones that they're not allowed to wear has disqualified the person, they have followed the license standards, they have followed the rules, so the insurance would still apply. Obviously, that person would then be disqualified, but it doesn't affect the insurance, provided the rule is tried to be enforced. Paul Wood, you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Barry. One is in answering the questions about the running numbers with these running vests. Some runners use a tri-belt and put the number on that so it can be moved up and down around the waistcoat belt thing. That's one way of getting around it. The other one is for Piers. Yeah, if it's flagged by you, Piers, then it, as Barry said, it would be dealt with by the regional chair and Barry. And in lots of cases, we deal directly with the event involved. And yeah, you're quite correct. We don't always get back to you.
Yeah, and it's easy enough for us to do it, so we'll make sure we do. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Paul. And I noticed in the chat you've just answered a question there as well around the tri-belts as well for someone that was asking there. Just in the chat, we'll come to you in a second, Roland. There was a question about are we trying to change adjudicators every 3 years? And Roland has helpfully answered in the chat there and said, we'd love to. We don't have enough adjudicators at the moment. It's something we're working towards so that there's a maximum number of times that you consecutively adjudicate something. Fresh pair of eyes on an event is always good. And it's not to suggest that you wouldn't be objective at all, but it's just having that fresh pair of eyes there. And now, Roland.
I'm just going to pick up on the fact about adjudicating and flagging up things.
Yes.
And just to say that we do it from even the very best events, because only on Sunday I flagged up a London Marathon organised event. So even that you think of the very top make mistakes.
Yeah, it happens, doesn't it? And you can have the biggest team and the biggest budget, but you can still, as you quite rightly say, and that must have been the Bath half if it was London Marathon events, that mistakes can be made, can't they? And we will address it. And we're not really interested whether they've got 20 million pounds sitting in the bank or £2 sitting in the bank. It's about race standards. Making sure that everyone's safe and looked after.
Well, when the lead car is 20 metres behind the leading group of runners, it's not a good publicity aspect.
It's not a great one, that is it?
No.
It's in your region, so you can follow that one up initially.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Um, where are we? We've got someone there asked if you're in an area where there's fewer adjudicators, can a club member adjudicate if he or she is not involved in the event organisation? We have to at the moment. Um, Margaret's quite helpfully suggested that she might be able to help with that one, but it's not ideal. It's not impossible to allow it, but what we'd say is if that looks like it's the only option, then whichever region you're in, and obviously Cumbria would be Yorkshire and the Humber, is speak to Mike and Mike in that area, and say, look, this is the scenario, and make sure that they're happy that there is that degree of separation and that they're not involved. So it's not ideal, but if there's no other option, it can be considered. Okay, Robert, we're back with you.
Yes, one I brought up before. Have you, when I go along as a event adjudicator to one of these major national events, I'm sure we all know the company that does 10Ks, half marathons for charity all
Mhm.
around the country.
Yeah,
One of the things I asked them is, and I've just been checking the website because I'm doing one of the races in a few weeks' time. They don't have the Run Event logo on it. They don't have a certificate logo on it. Looking at it now, I ask them every year. They ignore me every year. I think that it should be yourself, Ben, people at that level, setting up to talk to them at the beginning of the year and say, right, these are the expensive events you're talking about, the £75 for a half marathon.
yeah.
They'll just ignore me. Every year, like, I go to everybody and say, you've got to put a Run Event logo on. Here's the new one. Here's the link. You've got to put certificate distance. They ignore it year after year. And I can imagine that somebody 2 weeks before asked to share a Dropbox and then turn up on the day doesn't get treated as seriously as somebody where England Athletics tag at the end of their email address and saying, right, let's look at your licenses for the whole year and let's agree the standard. Because they're not going to put one in the Lincoln event if they can get away with it in every other part of the country.
Well, yeah, and that's a valid point. I mean, where you see like the one of the license standards is having the Run Events logo and England Athletics on there. So they should be doing it. If you do spot them, tell us, because
Right, I'm telling you now again.
yes,
They,
tell us. We'll go into bat with them and
right, it's called
hopefully,
the called Run for All events. There's one
yeah,
coming near you. They consistently won't do it.
right.
And unless you say to them, take us seriously, there isn't really a lot of point in me going along to adjudicate one of the events if I'm just you can go there, but don't talk to me about anything.
Yeah, okay.
Because
Certainly run for all. I talked to their operations director. I'm going to put that on my list to talk to him about.
check out yourselves and the people in this room and ask yourselves, why are they not getting picked up every place for it? I'm bullying the small events and saying you've got a license, you've got to adhere. There's a set of conditions that you've signed up to. Um, that's what I'd like. I'd like to
Yeah.
see it appearing before I tell them next week. Can I tell them that they've completely ignored the instructions the last 3 years? They don't have enough toilets and they're going to have to cancel the race.
Well, you can't tell them they're going to have to cancel the race, but
Well,
um,
to be honest, we're all wasting our time here. If we're given a British England Athletics license and saying those rules are for the small people, they're for the clubs, you can do what you want. They're not London Marathon. They're a
yeah,
big.
they're a big company. Yeah, and they've got about 20 races, haven't they? So
Well, I'd say to you, how much will it cost them to stick the two logos on it?
yeah,
Costs them nothing. They just
yeah,
get treated with
exactly.
contempt.
Yeah, we'll get them to do it. I'll speak to them.
Thanks.
That's all right, no worries. Phil Jays, you're next.
Hello, sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself then.
That's all right.
I mean, it's probably obvious to a lot of people, but just one example of a race I adjudicated recently. It concerns really maybe if you have any concerns, if you can engage with the race director there and then on the day. An example was on this road run event, there was a right turn at the junction being marshalled by two people. A bit of traffic goes through. My first thought was, it doesn't seem to be sufficiently marshaled. I took it up with the race director, and his response was they'd actually had 5 marshals there in the previous year, and they found it was just a case of too many kids falling off, so they reduced it to 2 because it was actually more manageable that way. So, yeah, just I think it's just a note to maybe
Yeah.
instead of going away and potentially raising a flag, if you can engage with the race director and get some context behind any potential issues, it's quite handy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do, obviously, at the end of the report, we do say, have you shared your findings with the race director? And you're absolutely right. If you can deal with it at the event and you're satisfied with it, I mean, you can still put it on your report and say, spoke to the race director, here's the reason, happy with the resolution. But yeah, that communication, that two-way communication is really important. So appreciate that. Thank you. Paul, back with you, Wood.
Answering Andrew Clinton's question, how long does it take for events to become active by the regional panels? Depends on the event, whether the event adjudicator has agreed to do the event. It can be literally a day, or in some cases, I've got some that are sitting on my thing that are 3 months old because the event hasn't gone in and selected a new event adjudicator, and I can't pass it until they have one in place.
Similarly, it could be that they've applied before they've got the sign off from their local authority or equivalent.
Yeah.
And we're waiting for evidence from the said group or council or local authority that has now been given.
The other thing I've seen a lot of recently is medical cover. As you alluded to earlier on, Barry, I've got a number of events that think that they can get away with just club medics.
Yeah, and defibs on pavilion buildings that you've got to type a code in to get, and that's not a defib
acceptable
for the event. So yeah, there's lots of things go on in the background. Piers Punton, we're back with you.
As Ken Littlejohns will tell you, I had a cardiac arrest at a Hampshire cross country event, and I was revived by a cafe defib.
Right.
Please do not denigrate the defibs. The medical cover was a little bit, I obviously was not conscious of the situation, but it was bystanders who revived me, not the medical cover.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
please do not denigrate cafe defibs. The more people we can get trained up in CPR, how to use a defib. So please don't expect the medical providers to react as quickly as the people running behind you. Someone who was warming down, who was at the front of the race, a triathlete, saved my life. 2 members of Basingstoke Running Club. So please don't denigrate the cafe defib. Sorry.
No, that's all right. And it's not that we don't want those to be used, but we can't have that as the sole reliance for an event. So great if there's a cafe, kiosk, local building with defib on there, make sure that people know about it. As you're right, get people trained on it. But make sure your medical cover
but
has got defibs there as well.
Sometimes the medical cover, even, I mean, quality control is just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Every single company has ISO, whatever it is now, 9001 quality control. That doesn't make any difference. Sorry.
No, I know what you're saying.
A piece of paper makes no bloody difference. Yeah. Attitude, responsibility. You know, some medical crew, you literally have to coach coax them out of their car with a bacon butty. You know,
Yeah.
and they can have all the certificates known to man. So please, let's not bury, and please, Barry, pass this back. We're buried in bloody paperwork already. Okay. We've got cross-country events that are not happening because of parental guidance. You can't car share anymore. So we've got no bloody place to park
No,
cars. So
yeah,
cross-country
no.
events are disappearing. Don't bury the event athletics in paperwork.
Yeah, we're certainly trying not to, but yeah, appreciate your point there. Thank you. Where are we? Philip, is that another hand up for, or is that from before? Possibly from before. Roland.
Sorry.
Just while we're talking about defibs, that I understand there is a national shortage of pads, defib pads currently, and the message is that even those that are out of date should be used. It just means that the patient will get feel a bit more of a shock than what they would normally.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I believe there's been some guidance issued by the people that control these things to say if the pads are out of date, carry on using them.
Correct.
Philip, sorry, you just managed to come off mute there just as we were checking whether you've got another question there.
Hello. Yeah, sorry. I think I must have accidentally pressed it twice, but having just heard talk about it, I suppose the admin burying in paperwork, certificates, etc. But the bit about the medical teams, just a note. I mean, I don't suppose there's anything to stop an adjudicator raising a flag if they feel the medical crew that turns up are really sort of not being very, let's call it, proactive.
Yeah. Yeah, if they're just sitting in a tent somewhere and as the was quite well communicated there, you've got to coax them out. They're not really doing a medical job then, are they? So if you're concerned about them, yeah, by all means.
Yeah. Thanks.
Paul Wood?
Yeah, on one of my recent race directors courses that I ran, a couple of the clubs in that particular area got their medical provider to come along to the marshal's briefing and give CPR training to all of the marshals that were there
Oh, what, ahead of the event?
ahead of the event. And because they'd had someone that had had a heart attack and one of the marshals had intervened and done CPR, and they then realised that in lots of cases they are the people that are going to be on the ground, and so they ask all their marshals if they are happy to do that. If they're not, they give them another role where they're not likely to come in contact with it. I
Yeah.
thought it was an excellent idea.
Yeah, it's good that, isn't it? Okay, so we're just over time at the moment. Is there any other questions that anyone wants to ask before we sign off for this session? No? Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us. Hopefully that was useful to you. We'll be having, these are quarterly, so we'll be having another one in the not too distant future. But thanks very much for taking the time. The recording will be available, so if you know anyone who missed it, that will be available and put onto the England Athletics website. Obviously, the link will be shared to you guys as well. But all that remains is to thank you very much for your time. We do very much appreciate all of the hours that you give to the sport in terms of going to events, helping us out and making the sport a better place. We don't always say it, but we are really grateful for everything that you do give to the sport. And I know all of the race directors are as well, and all of the runners. So thank you very much for everything that you do. But for now, I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll talk to you all again very soon.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Barry.
Barry. Thanks, Barry. Cheers.
Good night, all.
Good night.